I rise to speak on the Children's, Youth and Family Amendments supporting stable and strong families Bill 2025. And at the outset, let me say the intention behind this bill is good. No one in this place disagrees with the concept of strong and safe families. But when the state takes the responsibility for a child, responsibility for the child's well-being should extend beyond protection to housing, to health, to education, justice and employment. And we on this side of the House believes that is obvious and moral. But aspiration without accountability isn't reform. Cooperation without responsibility isn't protection. And legislation that relies on goodwill rather than obligation for outcomes does not keep children safe. And with this government's track record of disorganisation and drift, a plan that relies entirely on departments to voluntarily cooperate without binding duties, without consequences for non-performance, and with wide open escape clauses looks less like reform and more like another glossy binder for the shelf. More spin. This bill is the second major child-related legislation by this government in the past 6 months. Yet neither addresses the catastrophic failures of the Victorian child protection system. Failures confirmed by my own personal involvement with children, carers, parents, frontline workers and police, and also really reiterated by the member for Warrandyte in her findings as she's been talking with the similar groups. It's heartbreaking, it's heart-wrenching what we hear, and it's impossible to not feel completely confronted by it, as the member for Warrandyte very capably articulated in her lead speech. So those who actually experience the system tell us it's broken, it's overwhelmed, it's siloed and failing the very children the state has assumed the role of parent and protector for. This is a system in crisis and a government that is failing our most vulnerable children, and the evidence is clear. I suggest to the member for Albert Park to go and talk to the families, talk to the children, talk to the workers. They are at their wits' end and they are caring people who just want to help. This government has been responsible for child protection for more than a decade, and in that 10 years we've seen escalating numbers of children entering care, an explosion of residential care rather than the loving arms of a family-based placement like foster care, because the system is not supporting those people and they are fleeing from the system not because they want to but because they have to. They can't afford to stay in it. They are unable to look after a child without the appropriate allowance, and they're not getting that. There's a chronic workforce shortage. Children are disengaged with education. There are reports to the government that demonstrate that, and one child I know who's been in the system from 12 years of age, who turns 18 soon, has not been to school for that whole time. Untreated mental health issues actually plague some of these children that are going completely unaddressed. Rampant drug use and addiction is absolutely infiltrating, particularly in residential care facilities. Despite what the government say, that is exactly what's happening. And the workers tell me, one woman who actually runs some of these places said to me, you couldn't say every young girl is involved in prostitution, I'll say it for what it is, but almost all were her words to me. Sexual exploitation, sexual assaults occurring within these state-run facilities. It's not an unusual occurrence, it's frequent. And yet, after a decade of failure, what is being offered to this parliament is not structural reform, not enforcement standards, not mandatory accountability, but a weak and loose framework encouraging departments to work together. Well, we'd all like that. On paper, the bill establishes a supporting, stable and strong family scheme. It designates ministers, department heads and chief commissioners of police as partners. It defines a target cohort, It requires 2-year plans and then 2-year progress reports to the Parliament. And it sketches big outcomes in areas of health, education, housing, employment, justice and Aboriginal self-determination to be tracked by future measures, still to be defined, I might add. But the bill explicitly does not create any enforceable rights for children, families or carers. It cannot be relied upon in the civil proceedings. It does not override existing statutory duties or powers. It does not require action where scheme responsibilities conflict with existing portfolio priorities, and it does not compel ministers or departments to implement the actions in their own plans. Ministers must prepare plans, but joint planning is optional. Collaboration is encouraged but not required. That is the very definition of a silo. Everyone writes a plan, nobody has to line them up, and when priorities collide, the bill tells departments to follow their normal business first. No new powers to require coordination, reconcile conflicts, direct action, or hold anybody to account. In other words, it's useless. It's procedural rather than directive. Plans and reports, no teeth, no way of making sure outcomes occur and a child is cared for and protected, which is actually the purpose of child protection. No way of making sure outcomes occur and that a child is cared for and protected. I'll repeat it. No way. And we are talking about basics such as going to school or not being sexually assaulted. Wow. Where have we come to that I'm saying that here in the Parliament? That's something I'm saying, please help, please stop. If you want to understand why cross-government cooperation is unlikely, just start there. This bill creates responsibilities and then makes them optional, and the moment they become inconvenient. That is not a lever of collaboration, it's a manual for avoidance. Experience shows us bureaucracy retreats into silos. I think we've all said it and we've all seen it. Responsibility is deflected and children fall through the cracks. That's what we see every day in the state of Victoria. Children need decisive actions, they need accountability and they need strong outcomes. Stakeholders warned that at its weakest this framework could do little more than high-level plans and reports with no meaningful change. The bill's own analysis concedes that the practical impact will depend on the quality of the plans and the willingness of the portfolios and the future resourcing decisions. Well, let me tell you, the police are willing. They're standing ready to act, but they don't have the legislation to be able to do that. That's why this bill is a bill without any teeth. And let me tell you about a young person who I've been dealing with. And this is an example that demonstrates the utter failure of this system. A child who was 16 last year and placed in a secure welfare unit for her own protection. And yet, despite this, she was picked up from that secure unit that was her own home by a man in his mid-30s who had an IVO out against contact with the child. Now let that sink in. A child in state care in a secure placement collected by an adult man. Now, what do you think goes on? These young girls are fooled into believing these men care for them. They're children who are starved for attention. You can just imagine it. You know, I love you, but I need you to do this for me. If you can do this, we can get the drugs and we can have so much fun. You can just actually hear it being played out. And this is what she's told me. So, of course, this is pure sexual exploitation, and the police don't have the legislative tools to stop this ongoing sexual exploitation. And to be completely honest, it's not anything other than state-sanctioned sexual assault. The state are failing to protect her, and the state has not intervened. She will speak out. She tells me she will speak out, but she also says she's not allowed to, and one of the workers who's working with her wants to speak out, but the government is strong in saying no, not allowing it, as the member for Warrandyte clearly articulated as well. They're being actually stopped from telling what should be told. So this is not a bill that, if it passes, will do any more than produce plans, more reports, and no change where it really matters for our children, our vulnerable children in homes that cannot be cared for in the environment the government has put in place. So we should pause the self-congratulations and strengthen the substance. We should put outcome measures in place now and put the child at the centre of care.